Hi everyone. Just a quick update. I did get to the hospital on Monday last week and spent 4 days in hospital. Not not exactly the best time of my life. The first thing that happened was that I saw a registrar, and he was actually fairly aggressive in the way that he spoke to me. Um, it was more his attitude than anything else, but he just kept asking me questions. He made absolutely no allowances for the fact that my speech is sometimes quite difficult and I have trouble with my memory and thinking. But he seemed to be much more concerned with why I wasn't working than anything else. He really didn't want to know that really didn't want to listen to what I had to say. He appeared already to have an agenda. And he phoned my wife to ask whether I act out my dreams or whether I had any strange behaviour, and it was obvious right from the start that they were suspicious as to whether I'm making up my symptoms. Anyhow, I did eventually see, the next day I saw two of the consultants, two professors of neurology, one being a movement disorder. And the first guy that I saw, who was my consultant, who I'm under, he did a neurological examination, and I said to him, all I really want to know is what's going on. To which he said, well, I can tell you what it is. It's all psychiatric. And I thought, what? And then he gave me some explanation of how you might have some bad experience and you react in a certain way, and every time you have that experience the reaction comes, which is fine if I was agoraphobic or one of those type of things, that could accept that. But my symptoms aren't triggered by anything. These symptoms are with me every day, and all or at least most of the time. Well, in fact, no, all the time. There's always one of the things that's going on in me. So to try to suggest that it's something that is just triggered by an event in some ways just seems total nonsense. Anyhow, what it did do was it made me more anxious, because I could see right from the start they'd already decided what was wrong, and it made my symptoms twice as bad, more exaggerated than what they normally would be. My walking was worse, my speech was worse, my involuntary movements were worse, and they were all increased simply because I felt that I was being disbelieved. Anyhow, in the 4 days that I was there, not a lot happened in many ways. I spent most of the time just sitting around waiting. No one bothered to tell you when anything was going to be done, whether there was going to be you were seeing a neurologist or there was going to be a test. So you couldn't just wander off and go and get a cup of coffee or go outside or anything like that, because you just needed to be there in case you were needed. As it turned out, not much really happened. I had another lumbar puncture and a few more blood tests. I saw an OT and a physio. The physio did find that I had some weakness in my hip and waist area, which she believed was causing some of my problems with walking, but didn't give any explanation as to why they're there. I can't think it's from non-use, because I have been walking just about every day since I became ill. I've been going out for a walk. I've not laid around doing nothing, so can't think it's because of that. And I had a startle test, which was, to say the least, it was because I was so anxious. My movements were far worse than they would normally be. They wanted to do a nerve conduction test, but when I was lying down, I was jumping about so much that they said that the machinery wouldn't pick up what's going in my brain. It would pick up what my movement. So they couldn't do the nerve conduction test. The staff, in terms of the nursing staff and the physios and OTs, were great, but the staff in terms of the neurologists were, well, sometimes they were just plain rude and arrogant, to be quite honest. They were seemed more concerned in proving that there was nothing wrong with me than actually trying to get to the bottom of what was happening. So anyhow, I ended up with a diagnosis, and surprise, surprise, they diagnosed what they called a psychogenic movement disorder, which basically means that I have a conversion disorder, or in other words, it's hysteria. So all my problems for the last 2 years have been caused apparently by something that's happened in my mind. Another word for it is functional neurological deficit. In other words, the behaviour is an avoidance behaviour, or the whole thing is a lot of nonsense. I've done some research on the internet and about it. I've gone to psychiatric sites, and there isn't a scrap of evidence for conversion disorder or psychogenic movements disorder or any of that. In fact, you would have thought that neurologists would be so much more careful before they put a label like that on someone. MS at one time was considered to be hysteria. Parkinson's disease was considered to be hysteria. Dystonia was considered to be hysteria, and the list goes on and on. And as medical science has advanced, many things that were once not considered to be real because they didn't have the tests have now been shown to actually have a real organic thing behind them. So anyhow, because I was stressed, it just exaggerated everything. Well, that doesn't necessarily follow that because everything was exaggerated by stress, that it's the stress that's causing the problem. If you were to have, say, a car and it had a fault which you weren't really aware of, and you put more pressure on it, that fault will show up and it will become worse and more noticeable. And it just seems logical to me in the same way. If there's a fault in the central nervous system and you put more pressure or stress on it, the chances are that the symptoms will exaggerate. And anyhow, my symptoms certainly were, and my jumping around was worse, my speech was worse, my walking was worse, and I think they therefore thought that it was all to do with stress. And my blood pressure was up in the air, my pulse rate was higher than it normally would be all through my stay, and it was because I felt that I was just not being taken seriously or believed. So anyhow, I have this so-called diagnosis of a psychogenic movement disorder. Perhaps I'm just being plain stubborn. Perhaps I should just accept it. But it just doesn't ring true to me. I know what's going on in my body. I know that I have no control over the things that happen to me. I know that they are increased when I'm put under more stress. I don't deny that, but I don't believe that they're caused by stress. So one other thing I did look at was the drugs that I'm on, and I'm on serotype for my asthma, and that has quite a few side effects in terms of things happening with muscles and things. And I'm on another drug called valsartan for high blood pressure, which also has some horrendous possible side effects, and clonazepam, which causes incoordination and all sorts of other things. So I'm wondering how much they're at least adding to my problem. So I've been a bit naughty really, and I've decided to stop taking 2 of them immediately. And my clonazepam, you can't come off clonazepam suddenly because the withdrawal symptoms are too great, so I'm gradually withdrawing myself from clonazepam as well, to see if that makes any difference as to how I am. But other than that, I don't want to darken the door of another doctor or neurologist ever again if possible. I'm certainly not running back to them any too quickly. It will probably have to take a real bad turn in my health before I will ever bother to go back to see anyone. So anyhow, there you have it. You're looking at the psycho. So it's all in my mind, as they tell me. It's all in my mind. Bye for now.